This podcast is brought to you by Rebecca Cassells of the Rising Dawn series. Do you like violence? Do you like smut? Are you tired of the stereotypical novels of werewolf romance out there and want something a little bit different? Then pick up Sparked Revolution, Book 1 in the Rising Dawn series by Rebecca Cassells. Available on Amazon, in Kindle and paperback. You too can become a sponsor of Stories, the True and the Fictional by heading on over to buymeacoffee.com/STTATF or follow the link in the show notes. Hello guys and welcome to a very special Stories, the True and the Fictional. We have someone back. You may not remember him. His name is Ryan. He only helped start the podcast, but how are you, Ryan?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's been a bit. It's been a minute. But yeah, I'm back on track, back ready to get stuck into these interviews and into our other podcasts as well. And yeah, great to be back.
Awesome. I have been struggling without you with the certain judgmental questions, with the certain icebreaker questions. But before we get to that and bring in our guest, check out our sponsor, Rebecca Cassells, and our other sponsor, Martin Kearns. They've got some great books out. Rebecca Cassells has Innocence Corrupted. No, it's not the same as Chris's audio biography. You know, it's very close, but it's similar. And Martin Kearns, he's just polished off his Valor of Valhalla series. It's phenomenal. And if you want to buy my stuff, I just finished my trilogy, the Wedding Night trilogy. Ryan will be glad there is more Ryan the Uber driver in it, but that'll be out. That'll be out on the 11th of November. Remember that because it's Remembrance Day.
Remember. No, that's the 5th of November. So that's V for Vendetta.
But now that all the obligatory promotions out of the way, our guest today is Mathew J Turner. How are we?
I'm very well, thank you. How about yourself?
You know, living the dream.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
That's your go-to answer for everything, isn't it, Jamie? Just living the dream.
I really try not to say it, but I say it more than I
think it's ingrained into most Australians that is the de facto response.
I was just going to say it's such an Aussie thing to say, you know, even though I don't believe I've ever said it in my entire life, but so many people just respond, you know, living the dream.
But the most common response is, whose dream? Is it, you know? Anyway, let's kick things off. My favorite question, or my first question I ask all our guests is, who is Mathew J Turner?
Well, I'm English, as you may be able to guess, but I've been living in Australia for about over 10 years now. I've been writing, I started writing my first book way back in 2010, but didn't really work on it for very long. So basically did little bits and pieces here or there. And I've got 2 wonderful kids. I've got a wonderful wife. I've got a boring job in admin. So I use my writing pretty much to keep me entertained. And a bit of a history dork, bit of a curmudgeon. And that's pretty much the size of it, really.
Awesome. I think you'll fit right in here, especially from working mundane jobs while you're dreaming of doing other things.
Yeah, pretty much. It's what keeps the insanity at bay, yes. I find.
Awesome. Well, how are you feeling today, Ryan? Which order do you want to take these icebreakers?
Well, as I said, it's been a while. So I think I'm going to go back to where we all started, with me asking the first question, so I can ask the third question.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to break into our icebreakers, and as I said, it's been a while for me, and especially even when we were recording, we were getting into the guests in the doubles and the triples. Yep. So to ask these first questions again, it has been a very, very long time. So I'm expecting some good answers, Mathew. So if as people have probably missed my lack of filter between my head and my mouth. So
right, okay, fair enough.
I can assure you, even though I've been off for quite a while, that still does hold true. So Prepare to be judged.
Right, fair enough. I'm married.
Okay.
I already do.
All right, so question number one is, if you could get rid of one thing in the world, what would it be? Now, we do encourage selfish answers, so none of this, world peace and, violence and all that kind of rubbish. We know we'll get rid of that, but what's the one thing that you would get rid of in this world if everything was perfect?
For me, then again, this goes back to me being a bit of a curmudgeon. Clickbait is probably the bane of my existence. Clickbait and hyperbolic headlines. My wife, bless her, loves BuzzFeed articles. We'll be laying in bed and she'll just be on her phone flicking through BuzzFeed, and that just, those kind of clickbaity headlines just annoy the living out of me. So that's probably where I would first on my termination list.
Yep.
Send out Arnie.
Yeah. I get that feeling like whenever I see you can pick them a mile away, clickbait, and I go, I'm not going to click on that.
Yeah.
Like I defiantly go, no. I'm naturally a contrarian, so I'm just like, you'll never guess what Jennifer Aniston said. I'm going like,
you'll never guess that I don't care. Yeah. Oh no. What a shame. Yeah. It's always over the most mundane, tedious stuff that. Yeah. I understand why they'd have to do it, because otherwise no one else really cares and no one's going to click on it. But I'm good. And it just, a bit of a stickler for me. So that's probably my
slow news day. They always get your call.
Yeah, pretty much. Even with big events, it will be like like you say, the never guess who such and such did why, and no one needs to read that. No one really cares.
Exactly.
Who should bother? Leave it to them. But
I think you get to a certain age where back when we were obviously the era that we grew up. There was no. I remember I didn't get my first mobile phone until I was 18, and it was the good old Nokia 5110. You could do was send text messages and make calls. What a realization. But nowadays I suppose I'm the same. I see something like that, it's like you never, and it's all over Instagram, it's all over Facebook, and you're right. You never guess who died or who, like, and then you click on it and it's just they have a picture of someone famous. You click on it and it's like their personal assistant's dog or something.
Yeah.
And it's just anything like that, I just completely. As soon as a page that I like starts displaying that, I immediately unfollow because I don't need that kind of stuff in my life.
Or it'll be like something like, such and such actress from such and such show. You'll never believe what she looks like now. Like,
older,
and it will have some like terribly CGI'd or like AI changed photo to make them look like incredibly old or something.
Yeah,
it's something. Surely no one is looking at that going like that is a legitimate article.
That's right, and it's only going to get worse now with the AI technology the way it is. It's just going to be everything's going to be clickbait soon enough, and you're going to have to scroll through Facebook or Instagram to find something that's not. But anyway, I'm starting to sound like an old man, but back in my day, but I can definitely get on board with that because as someone who's online for multiple different reasons throughout the day, the amount of times you click on something and you have to click on 5 different things just to get where you want it to go, to get rid of all this clickbait and these pop-ups and everything. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I'm glad that was a unanimous, we can come to an agreement that
definitely
we can get rid of clickbait. Can sign it to hell.
Awesome. Let's move on to something that is on your bucket list.
Bucket list for me, probably because I mentioned earlier, I'm really into history and stuff. I'd really like to go explore Scandinavia. Being originally from the UK, I probably had a lot more opportunity to do it back then when it was a lot closer. But I'd love to just go to Norway, Denmark, Iceland, and just go, pining for the fjords is possibly the best way I could explain. And I also really listen to a lot of heavy metal, and there's some really great death metal, black metal festivals in places like Norway. I've got some friends back in the UK who at least used to, I don't know if they still do, go to festivals there all the time. And, you'll be trudging through ankle deep or knee deep snow in the pitch black in the middle of winter at 2:00 in the afternoon. But I don't know, I feel like it would be a great experience going to a black metal festival in Finland.
You don't think that, like, there's so many, you don't, three words that I never thought I'd put together is Scandinavian death metal, but there are so many bands that come out of that area, out of, Norway, out of Scandinavia, that are absolutely, they're quite unknown, but they're absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I think
and
Finland.
I dabble in the death metal myself a little bit,
nice.
in my old age. But there's so many. I've seen so many videos of, you're right, exactly, going to a metal festival, but you're having to get through all the snow just to actually get there. That looks amazing. I'd love to do that.
Now, being a history buff and a metal fan, have you heard of Sabaton?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I caught them when they came here a few years ago with Amon Amarth. They did like a double header here in Brisbane. It was a great show. Got very sweaty. I'm a very short guy. I was right at the front, and I had two really much bigger guys next to me spend the whole concert like that. So sweaty armpits kind of just... I didn't smell very good coming out of that, but it was a great show.
But that's how you know it was a good show. Is if you smell like absolute rubbish, like you've been lying in a tip in a rubbish bin, that's how you know you've had a good time at a concert.
For those playing at home, Sabaton's a metal band from Sweden, and they're all about the First World War.
Pretty much. Yeah. Pretty much. Great band though. I think they've been doing really well for themselves recently as well. I think they've been getting like some headline slots. Wow, they're kind of they're in that kind of like new tier of, because you got like all the older heavy metal bands like Iron Maiden, Metallica, and like even old like Black Sabbath, and of course they're all slowly dropping out. Obviously Black Sabbath don't play anymore. Iron Maiden I think slowly whittling down. Metallica are a bit younger, so they've probably got a few years left, but Sabaton are sort of on that next sort of tier generation. So when those kind of bands finally do sort of drop out, the Sabaton are probably going to be the ones that are sort of headlining the festivals. So no, they're doing really well for themselves as a band.
The war will never end for them.
Hey, it's a great source of material. Milk it till it's dry.
Yep.
Well, so far you're two from two in the question, so you're doing pretty well.
Nice. Good.
In terms of, there's been little to no judgment until probably now.
Right. Okay.
This is my favourite question of the icebreakers. And we do allow two answers. What, in your opinion, is the greatest sitcom ever made? And if that is not your favourite sitcom, what is your favourite sitcom and why?
Right. So I'm obviously, again, I'm going to look at this from a very British perspective. I would probably personally just go with something like Blackadder or Bottom. I don't know if you've seen Bottom, but very British, comedic, silly. I like the fact that British TV sitcoms are, you'll have 2 or 3 seasons, 6 episodes, 30 minutes, but they will all be pretty damn funny, good at what they do. Whereas like the American version or American sitcoms, you'll have, 14 seasons, 30 episodes a season.
A lot of filler.
A lot of hit and miss. Like sometimes they do very well. I mean, obviously, like in terms of British to American adaptions, obviously the American version of The Office, I would say, is probably the best adaptation across. And they obviously, I think the British version of The Office, there was only 2 seasons, but obviously they more than filled that out within one season of the American one. But I don't know. I just like the British format. That's probably just because that's how I grew up with. And Blackadder, I like the fact that you got the different historical periods. Again, it's probably a tick for me. Just the character being such a bastard. I don't know if I can swear on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Perfect, but just that conniving, witty bastard who treats Baldric like a piece of shit on his shoe. Just classic comedy.
Yeah.
No, I can agree with the British side of things. And in the last 10 years, I've started to get into a lot of British comedy. I'm a big Ricky Gervais fan, so he
Yep.
kind of brought me into. Obviously, I'd seen the American version of The Office, and I knew there was the British version, but I've never actually seen it. So I
Yep.
watched that, and then I kind of fell down the Ricky Gervais rabbit hole. I watched extras. I watched. Derek, I watched pretty much everything that he'd been in, and then that sort of took me on to a lot of other British comedy. Like I grew up, I can't count the amount of times I've watched The In-Betweeners, which is absolutely hilarious. You get a lot of great material from those guys. But what I would recommend, speaking of The Office, the Australian version just dropped a couple of days ago, and no. Yeah, 100%. I watched the first 10 minutes of the first episode, and I very rarely do that. I like to give shows 3 episodes, but I turned it off and I just said, no, not happening. It was absolutely horrible. Horrible, 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 horrible.
I like to say, you know how in the American Office, you've got the awkwardness but lovable Steve Carell.
Yeah.
Australian Office is just awkward.
Yeah.
Uncomfortably awkward.
The main boss is a lady who is trying too hard to be Steve Carell.
Yeah.
And I think that's where everything falls down. Like the Americans, MTV did a version, I think about 10 years ago, of The In-Betweeners in the US version.
Yeah.
It was only 1 season that was absolutely horrible.
Yep.
Compared to the In-Betweeners from the UK. And I think that's the problem. If a show is successful like The Office and had, I think pretty much all the seasons up until Steve Carell left were amazing, everyone's trying to replicate the main character or replicate that kind of comedy by trying to be like Steve Carell. I would have had much more respect and probably given it a bit more go if they tried to be themselves, or they didn't try so hard to fall onto that. Hey, let's be Steve Carell because that that cast did amazing things and made lots of money and everything like that. I just think that was a complete waste of it. And I think Amazon Prime put it out. It was a waste of their time, and it's going to be one of their write-offs. As I said, I didn't even finish the first episode, and that's very, very rare for me. If you haven't watched it, don't. Is my recommendation.
Run away.
We were umming ahhing, so I'll take that as a no then.
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, don't waste your time. We don't have much time. I mean, I have a lot of time because I'm not working at the moment, but you guys don't have enough time in the day to waste your precious time watching something as a pile of dog shit as that is.
So that's 2 things we've had to apologise on behalf of all Australians this year. 1, the new Office, and 2, the breakdancer at the Olympics.
Oh God, Ray! I missed you. I was in hospital when the Olympics were on, and oh my God, it was the talk of physio, Ray Gunn. We were trying to replicate things that just shouldn't be replicated, like a dying kangaroo. And
I'll say this: there was a lot of great memes.
A lot of great 100%.
Yeah,
if anything, we got lots of memes.
Yeah.
But did you know that the actual backstory, a little bit of backstory to Ray Gunn, I learned while I was in hospital from one of my physio trainers. So basically, to breakdancing coming in the Olympics, I think this is the first time it's ever been in the Olympics.
And now it's cancelled.
To qualify, Australasia there was no team, there was no breakdancers for Australasia. So they had to actually, you had to put on a qualifier in order to actually qualify. So she actually her and her husband put on the qualifier. Her best friends were the judges, and they gave there's a lot of good break dancers in the rural communities like in Northern Territory and everywhere, but they gave them a week's notice to try and raise funds to get down for the qualifier. So she was actually best out of a bad bunch of breakdancers. I think there was just a few from Sydney, and no one really got a chance to have a go. But her best friends were on the judging committee, so of course, she got picked, and then went over and made an absolute disgrace of Australia.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just a little bit of background of how she actually got into the Olympics, and that is verified because I googled it. I don't believe anything anyone says, so I googled it once I got back to my room, and it is actually true. So yeah, so there you go. That's how we Australia made our triumphant effort entrance into the breakdancing community of the Olympics.
Well, you know, someone had to do it.
and look, someone to be honest with you, I'm gonna disagree with you. We didn't need to do it. We should have stayed the hell out of it. The hell out of it. And look, as Jamie said, at least we got some good memes from it.
If the Jamaicans can put forward a great bobsled team, there's no reason why Australia can't have a breakdancer.
Yeah, but that was a story of, you know, of determination and putting your all, not bribing the judges.
Exactly.
True, and and I don't know if Ray Gunn's nemesis was German or not. So you always need a German to be the villain.
Oh, now I want to watch Cool Runnings again.
I don't. I
see pride. I see power.
How much I watched that as a kid, like at school, whenever it rained on sports day. Yeah. In comes the rolly TV. Yeah. And in goes the VHS of Cool Runnings.
And you know what? That was the same for us because I guess it was a safe movie, you know, being G-rated and it's, you know, technically historical, so they can get off. But still, I still have watched it outside of school, regardless of the hundreds of times I've seen it in school because it's such a good movie.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is how our podcast works, Matthew. We tend to divert and go down
tangents.
Down tangents. Yeah. But Jamie, I believe the next question is yours.
All right, now that the world is ending, what's your zombie apocalypse plan?
Now, this depends on what kind of zombies we're talking about. Are we talking classic?
All of them.
All the different. We've got the slow, shuffling kind and the quick ones.
Even the Michael Jacksons.
Think of it as like a tiered system, like a video game. So you've got the slow ones to start off with,
right?
And then you know, give it 6 months, and they evolve. Then you've got some of them evolving into the 28 days later zombies, the fast running ones,
right?
And then obviously from then it evolves into your Resident Evil, you know, Nemesis kind of. Bad guys.
So it's kind of a hold out for as long as you can.
Exactly. And the longer you hold out, the worse the zombies get. I've decided this, Jamie. All of our meetings happened on air.
It's canon.
But yeah, it's all, and the longer you stay alive, the more powerful and more as you evolve to the new situation, so do the zombies.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that kind of changes how so growing up as a kid, like zombies were I used to absolutely be terrified of zombies, zombie films and all that. Remember my dad used to have a VHS. In the 80s and the 90s, we had what were called video nasties in the UK. So basically films that were banned by the government. And one of them was a film called Zombie Flesh Eaters. I think it's called like Zombie 2, or it's got like different names in different countries. It was basically a rip-off of like Dawn of the Dead and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there's a notorious scene at the beginning where basically these zombies burst through the walls of this woman's like log cabin. No idea how they've got the strength for that. And they basically grab this woman and pull her towards a splinter that's sticking out of the side of the thing, and it basically goes into her eye. And I was like, I don't know, 6 or something like that when I saw that, and it just traumatized me as a kid. So zombies have always been a bit of a no-no for me. So
you won't be going to a log cabin.
No. I was kind of hoping we were dealing with just slow and lumbering zombies. So I was hoping I could just go and hide somewhere, kind of classic Dawn of the Dead style. I was thinking not a shopping center because that's done and dusted. I used to work in a care home back in England, so I know that they've got lots of canned food there. So, and also lots of cannon fodder. So I was hoping that I could, find an old people's home somewhere, barricade off where the food supply is and just kind of hold up there. Because in my mind, with the slow zombies, sooner or later the brains are just going to rot.
Yeah.
So they can't last more than 6 months to a year. So if I've got enough canned food to hold me out until that takes place, then I should be fine and dandy. Yeah. If we're working on a concept of evolving zombies where we're getting into the Dawn of the Dead remake quick style ones, then I'm probably screwed within a couple of hours. So probably find a high ledge with very little access and just hope exposure doesn't get me. That's possibly.
No, that's
run away.
That's because I dropped that change on you know, live on air. You know, that kind of defeats my purpose too, because I've always said I'd just go to Bunnings. And but then if
everyone
you know,
does.
I reevaluated. There's no food in Bunnings. You know, there's a little cafe there, but that's only going to last a couple of months.
No, you have to grow your own food because they have like
tomato bags.
Oh yeah, they do have gardening and seeds and everything.
But you have to wait for them to grow.
Yeah, so I'd have to make sure that I'd ration the cafe food. You know, the sausage rolls and the pies. And,
Crest doesn't take long.
And all that kind of stuff. Ration them out for a couple of months so I can start to grow some food. But yeah, and then have a little utopia inside Bunnings, you know. And but yeah, no, I like that answer. I like that, you know, because I did drop the whole evolving zombies, which is just sort of came into my head as we were talking about it. So I like that answer. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit cold-hearted, but using old people as cannon fodder, but, you know, it's...
No, look, you know, well, you think if the zombie's going to come in, I was thinking about this, if the zombie's going to come into the care facility, they want brains, but half of the people in there probably have dementia and Alzheimer's, so are they actually going to want those brains, or are the zombies going to eat those brains and take on the traits of the Alzheimer's and dementia and forget why the hell they were there in the first place?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Let's go with that.
Exactly. There you go. So,
it's like that Simpsons.
I was just thinking if that was part of your weaponized plan in terms of using the old people to turn the zombies around, and you could get right this way, mate. Off you go. You don't need brains. You just need to go outside. So I like.
So we're hoping for Night of the Living Dead zombies or whatever it is, and transferable Alzheimer's. I like it.
Yeah, exactly. All right. The next one is my second favorite question. Okay, so Elon Musk gives you a call and he says, Matthew, I'd like you to test drive my new electric time machine. So basically how this works is you can pick a place to go and then you have a little watch on your arm, which you push that button, it brings you back to the exact moment that you left. So nothing is kind of altered. So what do you do and where do you go?
Well, being the history nerd, my first instinct was to go to the fall of Rome. I was like, okay, the fall of Rome, that would be pretty dramatic, you know, big fundamental point to like the whole of European history. But then I kind of realized that the fall of Rome itself kind of didn't really happen on a single day. It was kind of gradual. It took time. So I changed it slightly to the fall of the Eastern Roman Empire, like when Constantinople fell, because that is a key that happened on a day that did just basically end the 1,000 years of the Roman, or at least the Byzantine Empire, and would be pretty dramatic. Just watching, sitting up on the Theodosian walls. I think that's the Theodosian walls of Constantinople. Just watching the Turkish army just shoot their huge cannons, blow bloody great big hole through the walls, and watching they don't actually know what happened to the last emperor. He was supposedly led a final charge, and they never found his body, never know what happened to him. So it'd be interesting to watch that final gallant charge play out as Rome finally fell. Thought that'd be an interesting one to sort of see. That kind of didn't really have as much of an impact on the rest of the world as, say, the fall of the Western Empire did, but I think it would be pretty interesting to see.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, it's your personal, like, what you would want to do. But would you be worried that, with the Turkish army, as they're invading, and one of the guys looks up on a hill and there's a guy sitting on the bonnet of a car, and they're like, "Oh my God," and it might change the whole fate of the war.
Well, I mean, if I could sneak back a couple of AK-47s in the boot of the car and dish them out to the besieged Romans, then I would possibly be inclined to do that as well. But yeah, I mean, I think by that point, Rome was a dead duck. I don't think too much was going to happen, no matter what the distraction.
Get some really good oil paintings.
Yes.
But then you've got to, if you find out what happens to the last emperor, then, do you keep that information to yourself, or do you start telling people and people think that you're a bit of a whack job? Because they're like, how does this person know the one piece of information that has never been?
True. Won't be able to milk it by writing a book. Damn it.
Yes.
No. You'll have to do it over time. It'll be like a process. Like, you won't just come back and go, haha. You'll pretend you're looking into it. You'll pretend you're.
Yeah, I'll do like a Dan Brown-esque kind of going in, finding evidence, and I can maybe leave a few crumbs for myself in the past, and then there's ways around it. There's ways around it.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I think all in all, on the icebreakers, you have passed. There has been no real judgment.
Yes.
You have given all the correct answers that have been required to progress to the next stage of the interview. So, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
This podcast is brought to you by Martin Kearns and the Valor of Valhalla series. In the battle between two ancient evils, can one naive young man become the last hope against powerful creatures of legend? Beneath the Veil is the gripping first book in the Valor of Valhalla dark urban fantasy series. If you like reluctant heroes, infernal myths, and bloody epic clashes, then you'll love Martin Kearns' formidable foray into the unknown. So head on over to readkearns.com and grab yourself a copy of Beneath the Veil today.
Well, let's make it simple. Where did writing start for you?
Very slowly. So I certainly wasn't born to it. I really struggled at school. I am not a natural born writer. When I left school, I could barely read, to be honest. So I hadn't really read very much. It was only when I sort of hit my late teens that I started reading. I think one of the first books I read was one of the James Bond novels. Can't remember which one it was, but I picked it up from my school library and I read that. And then a couple of years later, my hometown got a new library, and I found a Robin Hobb book there. I can't remember which one. I think it was one of the Rain River series. I can't remember which one it was. And then from there, I just kind of developed a love of fantasy. And then after a few years went by, some friends of mine were playing Dungeons and Dragons, and we're having a great time with that. And then I was like, it'd be interesting to maybe have a go at being DM. So I sort of took some notes down and kind of came up with this sort of some characters and some place names, not too much. And then I moved away. I moved to Manchester in the north of England and kind of basically fell out of contact with these friends for a while. So this game never took place. Fast forward a couple of years, found these notes again sitting in a notebook, and I was like, it'd be a shame for all this to go to waste. I'll turn it into a story, see if I can just write a little short story. And I was working at a bottle-o, basically in the UK, off license for those back home. And it was very quiet in the afternoon, so I just started writing originally in just an email, like a draft in my email.
Wow.
Wrote slowly wrote the first chapter and then left it. Came back 6 months later, did a little bit more, wrote another chapter, and then again, like I mentioned earlier, over the course of like 7 or 8 years, I slowly, worked through. I got to about chapter 15, 16, and then kind of went, I could actually finish this. I could actually complete a book, having not really thought about it that much. I was kind of just working on it bits and pieces at a time, never really thinking that I'd ever finish it. I'm known to starting hobbies and giving up.
Yeah.
The ADHD is strong. So I was like, I'm never going to finish this. And then eventually I got to the point where I was like, no, I'm going to finish it and force myself to actually sit down and finish the rest of the book. And then from there, it's gone a lot smoother than I would have imagined.
Yeah. So were you replying to yourself? Like first chapter, second chapter is replying to the first one, and were you
just keeping it in a running inbox? Yeah, pretty much. I mean, because I said, I was doing this on like the till at my work was basically just an old computer. I swear it was running off like Windows 95. So it didn't have Word or anything like that on it. So I was like, how can I write this? I'll just do it in my inbox or do it in an email.
Did you get any, ideas for characters when people walked in and it was like, oh, okay.
Well, there are quite a few alcoholics in my book, so quite possibly.
Coincidence?
Yes. I won't admit to too much, just in case they see this and try and sue me for.
Yeah, they'll be too drunk to.
Yeah. That was about 10 years ago now, so they might have all died of liver cirrhosis or something. Dark turn, I don't know.
Where do you get your ideas from? Like, what's your process with that? Do you just like, I mean, our last guest, she just stares up into space and they come to her. But like,
Yeah, some do. I mean, the first book, so A Reign of Emerald Fire, which that one was really a case of I had no plan. I basically just wrote as I went. Oh, this would be a good insert character as needed here. So some of those characters were influenced by, I've got to say, there's a character called Wilhelm, who is basically, if you've seen Red Dwarf, he is basically similar to Arnold Rimmer in terms of like he has these very large delusions of grandeur. He's like he's a youngest son of a noble, and basically his father hates him. He's completely superfluous to his needs. He's got 3 older brothers, so his father's got his heir, his spare, and then one for backup. He's who's part of the church or whatever. So this 4th son is just a drain on resources. So he doesn't care for him, but this Wilhelm believes himself to be very important, and he's very much based on this Arnold Rimmer character. Other than that, there's a lot of I suppose there's bits and pieces of myself in various characters in terms of there's a lot of bitterness and resentment and they're all also sarcastic. There's quite a lot of sarcasm in the characters. They're all kind of reacting to their different circumstances in different ways. Also just like history, take a lot of inspiration from history is probably one of the bigger influences. There's lots of historical references, pop culture references. There's like all sorts of kind of like a mixing pot of different inspirations.
Excellent. Okay. So we're obviously talking about, as Jamie mentioned, where do you get your ideas from? Who were some of your favorite authors growing up, and some of the authors that you've drawn inspiration from in A Reign of Emerald Fire? And obviously you mentioned you like fantasy and stuff like that. So who were some of your favorite authors growing up, and that have been an inspiration in your writing journey?
When I started getting heavily into reading, and then certainly in terms of inspiration for my writing, Terry Pratchett is probably got to be number one. Like the Discworld series has, I got a lot to owe to that series, just in terms of the humor, even the format of how my books are. So they are basically, my world is going to be an open-ended series where the characters will chop and change, and some will come back, some will not. So the first two books follow on from each other, but the third book planned is a sidestep away. Book 4 will come back to these characters, and then after that, I've got about 10 books outlined. So different characters will come in and go forth, and some will come back. So that's very similar to how the Discworld series works. Robert Jordan, the Wheel of Time series, that was probably the first big heavy sort of fantasy series that I got into. That was a good couple of years of just plowing through the Wheel of Time, and very much enjoyed that experience. I've got a friend group here, a couple of friends, my friend Danny and Brandon, who are both also huge Wheel of Time nerds, and they've read them multiple times, and they've also then reread them back on audiobook as well. And then also like Joe Abercrombie, the First Law trilogy, that has, I think, between First Law trilogy and Discworld are probably what I'm trying to sort of crush together into my books, in terms of it's got grimdark, stark backgrounds and horrific events and murder and so on, but then I've also just got a lot of silliness when it comes to the Discworld influences. But I also really enjoy a lot of historical fiction, like Bernard Cornwell. I think it was originally called the Saxon series, but I think it's now called they just call it the Last Kingdom series, because they made the TV show a couple of years ago. I started reading that book. I think it was like the 4th or 5th book came out. I didn't know anything about it. I just saw it on a bookshelf at a local bookshop, and I was like, oh, that looks like that's to do with Anglo-Saxons. I'm going to read that. Realized it was book 4 or 5. So I then had to go buy the other books, read those, and then read the rest of the series, and then had been buying them as they come out. It's one of the sort of first book series that I started buying, like getting signed first editions for, because they're just great reads. A bit formulaic. I think that's one of the sort of things Bernard Cornwell sometimes gets, sort of some of his books get say, they're a bit copy and paste in places, but I just really enjoy them as books. They're great, easy reads, and I loving the historical setting. Like Anglo-Saxons, early English is sort of like my key historical period. So that's another great author. But yeah, like Robin Hobb as well, Tad Williams. I've seen a lot recently. A lot of people. I think there's been like a new re-release of the Dragonbone Chair that's came out. That's been doing its rounds on Instagram and so on. But I really enjoyed his Shadow March series. I think that's actually one of his sort of fantasy series that doesn't get anywhere near enough recognition. I don't know if it's just not as well known about, or other people just didn't like it, but I thought that was a great series.
So quite a lot.
Yeah.
All the authors.
Yeah, every single one. All the fantasy authors.
Even you independent ones that are listening.
Yes. All you guys do.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's talk about your book. A Reign of Emerald Fire. Great name. Yes. Great title.
Thank you.
What's it about?
Well, so like I say, it's the first of the series that I've overall dubbed the yarn spun from the lore of Upranos, which is basically me. A lot of my work is satirical as well. So that overly flowery title is also just a kind of a poke at, the kind of name that book series give themselves at times, like the such and such chronicles or whatever. So basically, this is the opening story of a handful of characters who have come from different backgrounds, finding themselves lumped together, who are finding themselves in a world which is undergoing quite major religious and political upheaval, but they're kind of just also kind of bumbling along, doing their own thing while the world's kind of burning around them. And it's very, for me, like the writing and the book is kind of very character focused. You've got all these events going on around them, but they're kind of secondary to the individual characters. Basically, it's one of those found family kind of events, but it's also like it's kind of like it's a real found family where you don't actually like each other very much.
Yeah.
And it's kind of they're forging together as a unit. You've got Stan Wilt, who is a ex commander of the King's First, which is basically the monarch's personal guard. He's been disgraced and sent to this backwater town called Pepley to basically be the command or the captain of the local town watch, who's basically just spent the last 5 years drinking himself into a stupor and regretting past decisions. You've got Brolo, who is a half dwarf, half elf, who is a sarcastic, alcoholic little shit, basically, who yearns for something else in life. He's grown up in Pepley and resents the small town atmosphere. He faces a lot of racial sort of gets bullied quite a lot for the fact that he's half a dwarf, half elf. Neither elves or dwarfs or humans enjoy that very much or like that very much. So he gets he's kind of looking for a way to break out into the world, and he has a lot of bitterness and resentment, and he's being raised by his father. He never knew his father, so he's got the bitterness of that, and his mother had recently died, so he's kind of on his own now and doesn't have a clear direction. And then you've got Wilchelm, who I mentioned earlier, who is been forced into working in the Pepley town watch with Brolo and Stan Wilt, who is basically his father. Like they has nothing to do with his son. So basically went, here you go be in the watch and keep yourself out of trouble. And then you've also got Yolonia, who is a young woman who has run away from home. And she is the only daughter of a earl of an area called Stunheath. And basically she's run away, and she finds herself on a trading caravan heading north to an outpost beyond the kingdom's boundaries, and that is where events take the dark turn at the beginning of the book. So I won't reveal exactly what happens to her, but
buy the book.
Buy the book when it's out. Currently not available, but will be available soon. But she it's the forging together of these characters, and it's really setting up for future events. It's a lot of world building and setting the foundations of this very wacky world that I've created.
So do they meet by chance, or how did you orchestrate? Because you've got all these unique characters. How do they come together?
So the Stan Wilt, Brolo, and Wilchelm all live in Pepley and they're all there together, and they have to they're basically sent on a quest, as it were. It's probably the easiest way of putting it. And along their way, this is when they bump into Yolonia. I can't go into too many details without giving away spoilers. Yes, but that's how they come on. And they've also got a couple of other people in their group. And they come across various other characters on their travels. It's very much for me, it's very much a rip on the old classic sort of we're going on an adventure kind of fantasy, with also then the sort of grim, dark, sort of more serious, gritty elements of modern fantasy. Just kind of like poking a stick at both genres, as it were.
No, I really do like that approach. I'm a huge fan of satire. So So you've got me interested, very interested in. I know Ryan buys a lot of books on this podcast. We have a history. We have all the receipts from all the episodes.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Ryan actively buying the book as we're recording the podcast.
Oh yeah. Well, it's a tax write-off, isn't it? So
Yeah. That's one way to look at it. That's one way to look at it. So how do you go? Because this is something I've struggled with, because I just finished my zombie trilogy.
Yeah.
And the first two books, same timeline, characters that know each other sort of, but like, so you got set of characters in this one, set of characters in this one. Just finished the third book, and all the characters come together, and I've got to balance out these characters to the point that after writing my first draft, I go, this character hasn't been there, hasn't spoken for like 5 chapters, and I'm going like, they're there, but I had to go back and go, all right, I've got to give them some more dialogue. So how do you balance out like dialogue and character interaction and stuff like that without leaving one behind?
So this is something that I found a lot easier in book 2 than I did with book 1. So I mean, it helps that they all come together at some point, so that, and it's all told from, each chapter is from a different character's perspective, and there's different chapters where they will come to a new city or something like that, and one group will go off and another group will go off, and they kind of spend different amounts of time with each other. So I found it quite easy to make sure that everyone gets kind of a fair go. I mean, with book 2, I found this a lot easier because, like I say, with book 1, I didn't plot it out at all. But with book 2, I went, okay, chapter 1 will be from Brolo's perspective. This will be what happens. Chapter 2, Yolonia, So I kind of had it plotted out in that way before I started. Book 2 has more character perspectives. So I found it harder to make sure that everyone had fair time, because it was kind of like, oh well, crap, Frodo's got 5 chapters, but Yolania's only got 2. And one of the things, I mean, this is character feedback from one. Some of the feedback I had from book 1 was people wanted more Yolonia, so okay, I'll have to make sure that I give more to Yolonia in book 2, because that seemed to be one of the more popular characters. Not that you want to always yield to feedback or demands, but that's kind of just something I had to sort of factor in. I think that was part of the issues with book 1, with like, because they don't meet up with Yolonia until probably about up until the last sort of 4 or 5 chapters of the book. So it was kind of these guys doing their thing, and then we're back with Yolonia up here. So I think the biggest thing was also making sure that timelines worked out okay. And there are, particularly with book 2, because as I said, there's more character perspectives. There's kind of a case of, I think in like the Song of Ice and Fire, particularly when it gets to like Feast of the Crows, there's like events that are happening to these characters, but then there's events that are happening to other characters, but these are actually happening months apart. So there's some of that comes into it. And I have to kind of make sure I pepper things in there just to sort of make sure that is established, that these aren't happening concurrently or following on from each other. So it's a lot of going over it again.
It's the hardest thing to do, is to try and make readers not realize who your favorite character to write is.
It is. It is like, and I know full well for me that it is, because I will go, okay, I'm writing such and such chapter for this one, and smash it out, and then it'll be another character, and I'll be like slogging at it for weeks, if not months, because I'm not a fast writer by any means. And I mean, I actually found, I mean, I don't know if it's just character fatigue when when they are your key characters, but I found it a lot easier to write the chapters for book 2 with these newer characters than I have done for the main group, because it's just a fresh perspective, and also these other characters are say villains, or not working for the to the benefit of everyone else. So they're kind of interesting characters to write for. And I've been going over the edits again recently, and again, just even going through the editing process and going like, yeah, these are just, I prefer this so much good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nicer to write bastards anyway. I just thought, I don't know if that's everyone, but it's easier to write when you're trying to write a nice, like a happy-go-lucky, positive.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just writing this character and such and such, and it's just like, oh, shut up. You optimistic bastard. You're too cheerful.
You're way too cheerful. Yeah.
Well, you when you were saying that you're not a fast writer by all means. So how does your writing fit in with your daily schedule? Do you write every day, or do you have set times of the week when you actually sit down and go, okay, I'm going to try and knock out, a couple of chapters here or there? How does that work for you during your normal week?
So thankfully, like recently in the last year or so, I've been quite lucky in terms of my current job. I don't start work till 10 o'clock, and I finish at 6. So I've got some time in the morning to do writing, or as it's been for the last sort of few months, editing, because I've got 2 small kids. So on the days, sort of basically take them to school, take them to childcare, and then I will just go drive to my work and sit in the lunchroom and basically spend an hour smashing out as much as I can in that time frame. In between that, sometimes in the weekend, if I've got, kids are having a nap and we're having a bit of quiet time, I'll try and get some writing done there. So it's dribs and drabs. There's not a huge amount of time. I'm quite lucky actually this week. My she won't like me mentioning this, but my wife crashed her car on the weekend, so she's now using my car. So I'm actually having to work from home now for this week. So this week has actually been quite useful for me, because I've been having a lot more time to go and get some editing done, because for this book, for my second book that I'm working on, I decided to write stupidly the second, the last third of it on notebooks rather than on the laptop, because I was at my work and I was like, okay, it's just easier to sit with a notepad. But I'm now having to type all that up, and that's taking a lot longer than I envisioned.
Can't copy and paste.
No, sadly not. It's bloody tedious. And I really am just not enjoying that right now, but having this extra little bit of time in the morning has just helped kind of get through it a bit more. Don't know, I find the time as and when I can, but it is certainly like a work-life balance. I don't like to try and sacrifice on time with the kids to go sit and write. Although saying that, sometimes I do. No one's a perfect parent, sometimes you are just kind of like, go watch Shaun the Sheep or whatever. Dad's got some typing he needs to typos to correct or whatever. But I try and fit it in when I can, basically.
You can always just read it out loud to them as you while you're typing away.
Not with some of the language that's going on.
Self beep.
Yes, self censorship. Actually saying that is one of the things someone did point out, that I could use voice to text to dictate the thing onto Word, which I've been using, and it's been a lot easier to do. But unfortunately, I don't have Wi-Fi at work, so I can't. It doesn't work at work, so I still have to type that up the old-fashioned way.
Primitive workplaces.
Yes, very much.
Awesome. So when's the book coming out? When can people get their hands on it?
So the Reign of Emerald Fire, I'm hoping to have republished out. I'm hoping for the 1st of December. I've got new cover art being done. So it's been previously released, and I wanted fresh cover art. So I've got that being commissioned, and that should hopefully actually be done in the next few weeks. I believe the cover artist has recently just started on it. So as soon as that's done, I'm basically ready to go. That is all sitting up, ready to be published as soon as that's there.
Mm-hmm.
Book 2, as of yet untitled. I am then hoping to then be able to follow that up in, I'm thinking maybe May. That one all depends on how the rest of the editing process goes. Like I said, I'm going through the first stage of self-editing here, and then I'll probably do a second stage of self-editing before then passing it on. And I've got a trip to England coming up to go see my family for the first time in 7 years. So that will knock me out for doing anything for a few weeks. So,
but you'll bypass them and go straight to Scandinavia.
Well, look, tempting. It was tempting. I don't think my dad would forgive me if I did, but yes.
Book research.
Look, I did buy a set of very nice leather-bound, what are they called? The Icelandic sagas.
Yeah.
That I totally wrote down as a tax write-off for research purposes.
Yeah.
Like a couple of $100. I'm like, yeah, tax write-off, that's fine.
Yeah.
So it can be done.
Awesome. Well, I've got, before we let you go, I've got a few questions left in my bank. I don't know if Ryan's got any more, but one thing we rarely ever touch on this podcast, I know a lot of authors listen. How do you go about your cover art? Like, do you have one guy you work with or one artist you work with, or do you just kind of like see what's out there, and what's your approach?
Well, with so what I wanted is, knowing that that I've got so many books kind of planned for the future, and because I am basically restarting again with A Reign of Emerald Fire, I wanted to sort of have a consistent cover
aesthetic,
artist. So I found a cover artist. I kind of went through the various different sources of Instagram, Fiverr, Google, the different people, and I found one to work with, and she's taking on board A Reign of Emerald Fire. She's
awesome.
already got the contract and everything signed for book 2, so I think she's going to start work on that cover art, I want to say in February. I might be getting that wrong. And then we've already discussed ready for book 3 whenever that may be. So certainly my idea is to work with the same cover artist moving forward, just to keep that consistency. It all just depends on if I can actually make myself get writing with book 3 and get that one done as well.
Well, having that cover planned, it kind of motivates you. It's like, well, it's there. You gotta.
And like I've already, like I'm still working on a title for book 2. I have no idea, but I've already got the title for book 3, kind of pretty much set in stone, and I've also got the concept of what I would like for that artwork to be, because I say that one's a complete jump into a different story, and that one I think will only be that will be a shorter story. I think like A Reign of Emerald Fire is about 330 pages. I think book 2's looking at the moment probably to be closer to 400. This book 3 will probably only be around, not having written a single word of it yet, probably 200, 250 pages. That's the idea. So I'm hoping it'll be a bit quicker to write as well. And I'm also hoping, because it's a different character, different kind of plot going on, that it will be quicker because it's a fresher concept. So hopefully I can keep them on board for book 3, and then the rest of the books moving forward.
That's awesome. Because my next book's going to be fantasy, and I've never done that before. It's going to be super easy because I'm basing it off our current D&D campaign.
It's a great source of
it is so good. And I hope that when people read it, they can see where people rolled poorly.
You should have just little footnotes, just for the back. And this is where,
little teaser. But we're playing this session like a month ago or whatever. A month, maybe 2 months ago, and we had this. Like he's an alchemist. He's got fire spells, and we're fighting a Leshen. And he just can't hit the thing. And it's just one bit of fire. That's all you need. And he just can't hit. And he's casting all these fire spells, burning down the forest, hitting everything but the Leshen.
throwing wet sponges, just not hitting anything. No, just terrible.
So there'll be a lot of humor in that.
Oh, that's great.
In that, but obviously I'm going to give it some more depth and what are the characters going to think about and thought process and stuff like that, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I think there's a lot of great books out there that started as D&D. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what the Malazan series started off as. Was from a D&D campaign that just went from there. They're a great source of inspiration.
So if you guys listening, if you know any good artists, because I'm very anti-AI. I know it's very easy to go, let's use the AI art. And the only way I use it, and I never ever will use it, is to create concepts.
Yeah, that's basically what I've worked
and then
with.
I'll be going, here, artist, put some soul into it,
Yeah,
it comes across like I've seen a lot of AI art recently, and it compared to actually having a person design it and putting, like you say, putting their heart and soul into it. You can tell it appeals so much more to the reader, as myself being an avid reader, and just I think it just looks better overall, because it takes what 5 seconds to type in, hey, do this for me, AI, and it just will come up, and it just, there's no heart and soul into it. It's just a machine doing, okay, this is my best interpretation of what you've asked for. Whereas if you've got a person, you can go back and keep going, hey, I want you to change this, this, and this. And as I said, you can see that heart and soul in the actual design. And you got to admit, cover, like, aside from, aside from, reading a description of a basic synopsis, the cover art is going to draw the people in to buy. I know me personally, before I started doing this podcast, I would look at a cover and go, you know what? I think I'm going to like that, and I would buy it. Obviously, since doing this podcast and speaking with a lot of authors, I make my decisions a lot wiser. But, looking at a cover is most people's first reason for wanting to buy the book.
That's it.
So, having someone design it for you rather than having AI it's just, you're going to get such a better result.
Yeah. And like for me, like as someone who also really enjoys music, it'd be like me going to a concert and the band having a drum machine in the background doing that thing. Like it might sound close enough, but it's not going to have the same
feel.
It's like for an audio version for the same kind of argument. Like that's where I would sort of sit with it. And like you say, like for concept work, for like as an author going like, I can't draw the toffee. So, just having a quick, okay, this is kind of what I want to go with as an idea in my head. Perfectly fine. Certainly no issues with that. But in terms of having cover art or proper character art done, like you want to be able to go with an actual artist putting together something, and it's a combined effort of like, okay, you've gone through the effort of doing something with your creativity and this person's working together. So it makes like a from a purely not business but that kind of thing, it makes a whole complete set. Like if you kind of then half-arse it with AI cover, it kind of diminishes the what's the word I'm looking for, like not the validity, but you know what I mean, like it doesn't feel like it tarnishes it slightly.
Ability is the right word, because it's so simple to I can't draw at all, but I can go to an AI website and spend a few minutes typing it in and produce something that I can say is my work and it look amazing. You know what I mean? It's the ability. To someone like Jamie and I last year or early this year interviewed someone by the name of Jamie Johnson, who is a comic book artist. He's done work for DC and for he
Ninja
just
Turtles.
did a cover of The Last Ronin for the Ninja Turtles. So he's touring the Comic Cons, and he lives just down the road from us. But
nice.
I've seen on Instagram he posts his live drawing videos, time lapsed, and I watch them all the time because it's the ability that he has to just draw you in, and half an hour later I'm like, oh crap, okay, I only meant to watch for like a few minutes. But that's ability is the right word. For AI, it takes no ability. It's a machine drawing off. I could say, hey, I want to design a cover for this, and the machine will go bang.
Yeah.
Whereas the ability, and you've also got the conversation back and forth with the artist too, because with the AI, you can type that in and off you go. But with the conversation with the artist, you can go, I want this tweaked, or I think this would look better. And the artist might come to you and go, hey, I think this might look better, and you might go, wow, yeah, that's an awesome idea. It's a
Collaborative
conversation
effort.
as well as everything else.
Because you might have an idea of how it looks in your head.
Yes.
And then they show it to you and you go, ew. that sort of thing.
Exactly. And they might go, hey, this works better this way. How about we try that? And then they can go back and forth. Exactly.
Yeah. But I'm really, really good at getting an idea in my head and then presenting it to someone. I want this. I mean, you've seen it with my emu book. I literally took a photo. I didn't get a photo. I took an image of like an Australian general. And then I took an image of an emu and I said, stick that emu in that uniform. And it was just bam, it was done, and it turned out exactly how I wanted it. So I don't waste time with artists.
No, that's fair.
But,
if it does the trick.
Yeah. I'm very good at visualizing things, and so final question. I can't believe I haven't brought this up sooner, because this is a reoccurring question, Ryan. So you're new to this, but like a few interviews ago, someone brought up the whole map things in fantasy books, and he's like, "Oh, I'm not a fan of maps in books." But to this date, it seems to be the only one that doesn't like them. So what's your stance on maps in fantasy books?
I like having a map.
There we go.
I've revised mine for A Reign of Emerald Fire, but I just like a general world view. Like for my own personal use, I didn't want to bother going into nitty gritty details of this is all the terrain and this is the thing. I basically got
like
location, river, main sort of road systems. And they're like, it's there, it's functional, and it just kind of gives me kind of like, okay, this is the core idea of where everything is laid out. Mostly that was when I originally drew the map, that was just for me to make sure that as I was writing, as I were, traversing the world, that it all made sense. Yeah. Because I require that. Yeah. Visual kind of thing, because just my brain doesn't work very well quite a lot of the times.
They're walking around in circles.
Yeah, pretty much. And like, hang on, no, they took a left turn at Albuquerque there, and now they're back at or wherever. And then obviously when it just came time to having the book published, I thought, well, okay, I might as well have that included. I saw that conversation about and I actually really, because I believe it was like using historical the explanation of like they didn't really use maps, and the idea of the world being I thought that was a really valid point. I thought that was a really good reason to not have maps and to not have that. But I like maps, so I'm having a map. But no, like I can totally see why that was that was the author's idea. But
no.
Well, as someone who reads a lot of fantasy books, if I don't open the first page after the dedications and that, there's not a map of the world that I'm just about to read into, it's not a fantasy book for me. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just a staple of the ones that I grew up on. A lot of David Eddings, on Terry Pratchett, as you mentioned. But yeah, like with that, just opening, especially David Eddings, opening the book up and seeing that world drawn up and going, okay, here's this place, here's this place, here's this place, and then going back to that map as you read through each book is a staple for a fantasy novel. And so I can understand when Jamie said, like, there's only one person that doesn't like maps that we've come across. But I guess it's the era that I grew up on, the books that I read, but they all just even going to Lord of the Rings, it's something as popular as that. It's filled with maps, Elvish songs, and all these kind of amazing things that make you feel like you're part of that world. And to me, by seeing that map, I feel like I'm part of the adventure, because I've got the same map that what the characters are looking at when they're planning their adventures out. So
No.
So what we're saying here is you don't judge a book by its cover, you judge it by its map.
Judge it by its map.
Lack of map, yes, definitely.
I pride my fantasy books on the is it cartology? The map
Cartography?
design, yeah.
Yeah.
And if there's no map, there's no reading for me. So I'll just chuck it straight in the bin, no matter how much I pay for it.
Yeah.
That's a slogan right there. No map, no read.
No maps, no read.
Yeah. I mean, the problem with maps, though, you're damned if you do, if you're damned if you don't. I mean, I remember when I was originally designing my map, I shared it on Facebook, I believe, just kind of rough concept of this is going to be. And the initial feedback from strangers was, that's not correct. That's not how the geography would work. The rivers are not flowing in the right place. Yeah. And the whole temperate regions don't work like that. I was just like, yeah, but it's fantasy. So it's a made up world. So the geography can work how I want it to work.
That's your comeback. Your comeback is these two words. It's fantasy.
Yeah. Don't worry. They're just being trolls.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Well, we don't want to keep you too long because we know you got work, but
yes. I don't need to drive there now though, so it's fine. Right. I'll just close this laptop and open up another one. It's
you've got work. You've got work, Matthew, and I've got video games to play. So let's get a move on.
Look, I'd rather be in your shoes, that's for sure.
No. So what we're going to do is you're going to close up the laptop. You're going to dust your top and all that. You're going to walk out the front door, close the front door. Yeah. Count to 5, open the front door, walk back in.
Yeah.
Yes, that way.
That's how you're going to do it. All right. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Plug yourself, your socials. You got a website. When's this book coming out? Remind us when it's coming out again. And
yes.
Where we can buy everything. Plug
away. So A Reign of Emerald Fire coming out. So hopefully the 1st of December. Unfortunately, don't currently have a website, working on it, but you can find me on Instagram, all the usual places, Facebook. What is my Instagram page? I'm just going to find that. I'm pretty sure it's just Mathew J Turner, author. That's probably the best. That's where I'm the most active. I've got X and all that usual stuff as well, or Twitter. But no, Instagram's probably the best place to sort of find updates, and
cool.
I've got a link tree on there that will show you everything else.
All the links will be in the show notes, guys. Remember to check out our sponsors, Rebecca Cassells, Martin Kearns. Buy their books, buy my books. All my stuff's in the show notes. If you want to reach out, thetrueandthefictional@gmail.com. We're very active on Instagram. We've had a massive explosion of followers on Instagram for some reason. I don't know why. So you can reach out there.
Such great hosts. That's why.
Probably because I haven't been on for 4 months. That's why I haven't had an opinion. I haven't had an opinion explosion yet. So because I've been in hospital for that long, I haven't been swearing either. So I've got to come back to my normal roots. I don't think I've sworn at all on this episode, which is a joke.
I made it up for you. It's fine.
You could have gone whole other direction, Ryan, with that idea of going, well, I've just been walking around the hospital telling people to follow us.
Yes, I actually have. I've been rolling around the hospital. That's insensitive to people with one leg, Jamie. I'm walking around the hospital. You've triggered me.
Metaphorically.
Physiologically.
Yes. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and
thanks for coming on, Matthew. We really appreciate your time today, and thanks for making my first interview back in 4 months very, very easy. Thank you.
Thank you for lowering your tone enough to have me on. Thank you very much.
All right, guys. We'll catch you next time.
See you next time.
In 1932, the Australian Army declared war on 20,000 emus and lost. It's a part of Australian history that not many know about. Maybe that's because history is written by those who win. So if you want to hear the full story of the Great Emu War of 1932, then check out my book, Letters from the Emu War. Read letters, newspaper articles, and journal entries. With every turn of the page, you will gain a deeper understanding of the life and times of emus at war. So head on over to jabryden.com and grab a signed copy today.